the camera for 5 seconds. I always like to say, look at the pretty bird. You remember those? No, wait, was that SpongeBob? Look at the pretty bird.
That wasn't SpongeBob, no. I would have remembered.
But
no, I promise.
It's SpongeBob.
It's not.
It is.
Look at the pretty bird. There's no birds in
Look
the
at
water.
the pretty bird. Look at the pretty. Yeah, when they had the baby, him and Patrick.
They definitely never had a baby.
Yeah, they had the shell. Oh my god.
The magic conch shell?
No, I'm gonna send it to you. You know what I'm talking about? Look at the pretty face. Or is it pretty face or pretty bird?
That's definitely a different show.
I'm sick of you already.
It's okay.
Starting this podcast.
Get used to
on
it.
a bad leg. All right.
Thank you for tuning in to In the Vine Dating Podcast. Today, we'll be continuing our newest segment called Who's in the Vine, released every Monday, where Melissa will be interviewing different guests to talk about the questions you ask. And remember to follow up every Thursday, where we will further discuss any questions or responses you may have. Please enjoy, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Who's in the Vine Dating Podcast. It is your host, Melissa Chavez, and with me today, I have the one, the only, Steven Zayas, a.k.a.
Boxer.
And we're just so excited to have you on here. I texted the girls tonight, and I was like, hey, I'm interviewing Boxer. And Denise was like, I'm so excited. She just reacted to it. She doesn't really care. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Shout out Shekinah.
I'm kidding. She's excited. And also, Yessie, of course. So we're excited. You're the first single guy that we have on the podcast. On the actual podcast, yeah. Everybody else is married. So.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, so I don't know. We're waiting on the Lord. Anyway, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling fantastic.
Yeah?
I kind of had a long day, but I'm feeling really good.
A long day? Why?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Welcome
to
Therapy?
to Therapy with Melissa.
No, I just slept pretty late last night and had to wake up early.
Oh.
Went to the gym and school and all that stuff. But I'm feeling good.
Good. And he has some... What do you have in there?
Red Bull, but I do not sponsor Red Bull.
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate.
Although, if they want to sponsor us, holla at us. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Steven. Who is Steven?
Who is Steven? These days, what am I up to these days? I'm currently in college, trying to graduate, and I should be graduating this year.
Oh, wow. What are you graduating with?
I'm graduating with my bachelor's in criminal justice.
Oh, sick.
And I work full-time. I work as a police officer for a federal agency, and I'm a man of God.
Okay, that's good. Are you still doing boxing?
I actually just started picking it back up recently. Okay. It was kind of hard to do it with school and work.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially the job that I was working at before this, I was working in the prisons, and with that, it was almost impossible. So I just started feeling the pull again to get back into boxing. Obviously, it's been a lot harder to get back into it. I put on a lot of weight since the time that I was in boxing before. But it's been fun. It's been an experience to get back into it. It's been very humbling. Because boxing is not like lifting weights. You know what I mean? You could be tired in the gym, but in boxing, if you're tired, someone's still coming and knocking your head off,
I'm sure, yeah.
So, yeah, it's been going good.
Are you excited about it, or?
Absolutely. It's a new challenge for me. I like to put a lot of stuff on my plate, and so whatever keeps me busy is usually what I gear towards, and so I'm very excited to at least get better at it. As far as what I'm going to do with it, I'm not entirely sure. I know I do want to start fighting again, but we'll see what happens. I'm just going to focus on every step and just get better in shape.
Cool. That sounds very inspirational. I feel like we can just end the interview right there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so... But in all reality, so the girls and I, right? We don't just pick who we're gonna have on the show willy-nilly. Obviously, we pray, and so this season we are talking about servanthood. We're talking about soul ties, the premarital sex, and all that stuff. And so, as far as I know about you, one of the things that we know you for is the servanthood, right? And how great you are at that, but I also know that because of that, you've gone through some stuff, right? And so because of the stuff that at least we have some knowledge that you've been through, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we don't know about, we're like, okay, yeah, like it's time to have Steven on here. So thank you for saying yes, because you didn't have to.
Absolutely.
I mean, you kind of did, but okay, so that's why we're having you on here. So we're ready to dive in. You ready?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, so the first question is, I know that you've had a crazy life growing up, and there's a lot that you can share. So to start, can you please share about your life growing up?
Sure. I would say growing up, my life was a little less than ideal. I grew up with my brother, me, my brother, and my mother. And my mother ended up passing away when we were kids.
Okay.
And after that, me and him would just kind of move to different houses. And so it was a little tough growing up. I didn't really have the father figure that I was searching for as a kid. And so it kind of led me down some bad paths where I would have bad people around me, and they really were a big influence on my life. So much of an influence on my life that I thought the circle of people I had around me, I thought that's how the whole world was.
Oh, okay.
And so I was living in a really dark lifestyle, especially like as a teenager. Yeah.
For reference, how old were you when your mom passed away?
I believe I was 7 and my brother was 9.
7 and 9. Okay. And then were you like in the foster care, or were you just like moving around with different family members?
Not until my mother passed. I was living with my mother, but afterwards, yes. We didn't really have much family.
Okay.
And so we just started moving around the system.
Okay, that's crazy. How long were you in the system for?
Until I was like a mid-teenager.
Oh, okay. So is there anything that you want to share about that? Honestly, this is all on you, whatever you want to share. If you want to give details, if you don't want to give details, it's all on you.
Right. Can say that most of the houses that I lived in were not good.
Okay.
I know Jackie and Jose, they have been picking up children and in the foster system, and they've been taking care of them. I think that's so great, because that was definitely something missing and something I wish I could have had as a kid. Because if I had people that actually cared, I think my younger self would have been able to stay away from a lot of the bad things that I had going on.
Fair enough. So did you start boxing before you got saved?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you get into boxing?
I remember in my neighborhood.
I've never seen your eyes light up like that.
I love boxing, but I remember as a teenager. No, I wasn't even a teenager yet. I was about 11. And me and my brother would take boxing gloves and we'd start fighting all the other kids in the neighborhood, but just for fun. It was just all our friends would get together and we'd start boxing.
Cool.
And I was pretty good at it for the kids in the neighborhood. And I remember somebody suggested checking out the boxing gym. And so I went to the boxing gym, and that's where like I found my first very humbling experience to find other athletes, even at a young age, that were just way better. And that's how I picked up boxing. I started right away.
You said what age? Did you tell me that?
I was about 11 or 12.
11 or 12. Okay. And so then you started getting into boxing. You started competing. Mm-hmm. Is that the right?
Yes.
I don't know terminology for this. You started competing and all that, and you got good, I'm assuming.
Yes, I started competing at 12. I had about 75 amateur fights. It's amateur, so there's amateurs and the professionals.
Okay.
So think of amateur like college and high school basketball.
Okay.
You're not getting paid yet. So I went through the amateurs. I won the Golden Gloves. I won a lot of national tournaments. And I stopped boxing as a teenager when I started getting in trouble, but ended up picking it back up later in life.
Oh, okay. So tell us about your relationship with Jesus. How did you find God?
That's an interesting question. How did I find God? I was just talking about this at work. So,
okay, cool.
I remember I was in juvenile hall. I was 16 years old. And so on weekends in juvenile hall, everybody gets visits on the weekends from their parents. And so I remember I was laying in my bed, and the person next to me would always get a visit. And I remember one time he came back, and he's like, "Hey, you don't have anybody to come see you?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't. I'm
not getting cramp. I'm just going to drink water."
And I was like, "No, I don't." And I know this is going to sound very simple, but this was something life-changing for me. I told him no, I didn't. And he looked at me and he said, "Hey, bro, if and this was like a gangbanger. He's like, hey, bro, if nobody loves you, God loves you. And I remember, I never heard that before. I never heard those words before. And I remember looking outside the window and I started crying. And I could feel God's, that was like, I would say that's like the first time I felt God's presence. Besides, like, because I've had scenarios as a kid where like something tragic happened and I felt a peace.
Yeah.
I would say that was God intervening for me. But this was the first time that I was able to recognize like this is God.
Yeah.
And that's when I first encountered God. It's hard to say like when I would like as far as like when I said the prayer. I wasn't. It wasn't until I was 21. So I started going to church in juvenile hall, but it was a Catholic church.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't really understand the differences or anything like that. I wasn't a theologian or anything like that. But I remember I started reading the Bible in juvenile hall, and slowly but surely started establishing a relationship that was tangible.
Okay. That's awesome. So then you got out of juvie. How old were you then?
I went 5 or 6 times, so they were different ages.
The final time.
The last time I was 17.
17? Okay, so 17 years old, you get out of juvie. What happens then?
Well, I remember the last time that I went, I was thinking to myself, like, this is the last time I ever want to come back here. I wanted to really develop myself into something different that I didn't, because you know how earlier I told you like my sphere, my social circle was all that I saw. And I remember this was the same time in juvenile hall when I encountered God. I went up to my teacher and I asked him, I said, hey, is there anything that you have that I can read that can change my perspective on life? Because my perspective is really skewed and I don't know anything about anything. And he looked at me like I wish I could talk to him. He looked at me like he already knew I was going to ask him that question. And he's like, just wait right here. And he goes and grabs me a book. He brings back the book. It's called The Greatest Miracle in the World by Og Mandino. Okay. And essentially what the book is about, it's about viewing yourself the way that God sees you. And so in the end of the book, there's a couple chapters that you have to read for 100 nights, and it's supposed to embed the message into your subconscious. Okay. And so as I started doing that, each night I started having a different picture in my mind of how God saw me. And so I started being able to visualize a different man. And so all I knew is the last time that I went to juvenile hall is that when I get out, I want to become a different man, and I want to work on that. And so, 17, and I never went back.
That's crazy. I feel like Ashley's looking up that book right now.
It's a great book.
What's the name of the book again?
It's called The Greatest Miracle in the World by Og Mandino.
Okay. The Greatest Miracle in the World. Okay, cool. Putting that in my mental notes. Okay, so you get out. That's amazing. First of all, the fact that you even asked that question, that you humbled yourself enough to recognize that that's a question that you needed to ask somebody, and then that person made themselves available. It's so important, right? In order to be able to seek those tiny moments in everyday life where somebody approaches you and it can be completely life-changing for that person.
Absolutely.
It reminds me even of, I don't know if you heard Denise's interview, but Denise's interview when she had to make a crazy decision, right, whether to keep her baby or not. She went to a person, and that person could have totally, well, she did change the trajectory of her life, but she could have also changed it for the better. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy how, and it's so, sorry, I'm going to ramble a little bit right now because she and I and Jess, we were just talking about, you know the word, right? You know the Bible. I would hope so. And so, you know the story where Jesus is like going to heal the little girl, the 12-year-old girl, and then the woman with the issue of blood is like pushing through the crowd to get to Jesus. So then they're doing a devotional, and in the devotional it talks about how Jesus was not too busy focused on the miracle to help out this woman. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because I think as Christians, we need to be aware of those moments where it's like we're so hyper-focused on our goals or where God's taking us that we forget that we also need to make room for the people around us.
Absolutely.
You know? And so, you never kept in touch with that man, or?
No, because the juvenile hall was in Calabasas, so I've never been able to see him again. I wish I could. It's funny because obviously he was just a teacher in juvenile hall, so I didn't look at him at the time as having a pristine career. But this man, with what he did, changed the course of my life. Yeah. And so I think it's it's interesting because I'm really career oriented to remember that it's not just about what we do, but like our character in it and how we do something.
That's
because
good.
you can do something to change other people's lives, and I completely full-heartedly believe that.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so can take a little break here. How do you feel so far?
I feel great.
I think you're doing excellent.
Imagine that guy was like an angel, though.
It's so funny that you said that. It's so
Really?
I thought about that many times, and I still think about it. Like that
Wait,
man.
You're
Was,
still recording, right? You haven't
yeah.
changed. Okay.
that man was an angel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It comes to my mind all the time because I really felt because when you know how I told him, I asked him the question if he had something that can change my perspective. I promise he looked like he already knew I was gonna come to him.
That's crazy.
And he went and grabbed the book. He knew exactly where it was. And I have this book in my backpack right now.
What?
Yeah.
Let me borrow it.
I got you. I'm so thankful for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that really started to change the way that I didn't view myself well at all. I thought I was a piece of,
Yeah.
oh, you orphan. Because all my friends as a teenager used to call me that, like, oh, you're the orphan kid. Yeah. And
Oh
I used
my God.
I used to think of myself that way. And this book really changed the way that I viewed myself, and that really started steering the way that my life turned out.
Question. So, obviously, you grew up in the hood, so you had to present yourself like I'm a G.
Right.
So when this guy told you like you're an orphan, of course, in that moment you take it. Like,
For sure.
But in the secret place, not knowing God, how did that affect you in your mind when you weren't presenting the thug, the G?
Right. Honestly, that's an interesting question. I wanted to so badly I think I really embraced the role of being like the worst kid. And so when they called me orphan, I just thought it made me worse. So I thought I was cool. And so I was like, oh, you're that guy. You're an orphan. Nobody can tell you nothing.
That's right.
And so that's kind of how I'm telling you, my perspective on life was really skewed at that time.
Dang.
And so I'm glad I was able to break free from that. Because some calls me an orphan now.
I still remember. Just so you know, we're keeping this. So
We're what?
We're keeping this. So
Oh, okay.
we're technically still in the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I always remember that. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but when you posted about it was a Father's Day thing, and you're like just driving around with my pops,
Right.
and it was a cereal.
It's funny. We were just looking at that picture at work. I definitely have a sense of humor. You know what I mean? And I'm not really thin-skinned. As a man shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know? You should be able to deal with the things that you went through. It'd be different if I didn't overcome those feelings, you know? Because it did suck. And I remember as a kid and as a teenager, it sucked.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, I would do anything. Not only just to have a father, but just to have a man that I could look up to.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I mean?
sure.
That can be an example to me. I remember thinking that distinctly. And it's funny because, and this was another way that my life turned out the way it did. I realized that, so I didn't have any, you know how I told you my social circle wasn't the best.
Right.
I started to realize that the authors in books can be my mentors and could be people that I look up to.
I remember
and
you
that
mentioning it.
blew my mind. I was like, okay, so some people might be blessed with like great people around them, but I'm blessed because I can have some of the greatest thinkers in the world, and I can shape my way of thinking after the heavyweights of people that live life. And so that really changed my perspective. And instead of looking at it as a crutch, like, oh, I'm a kid with nobody to look up to, I started thinking of it as a blessing. Like, I have all of these people to look up to. You know what I mean? I have real influences in my life, and those people really changed my life. They're authors, but
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
The first question is, well, one, I just want to make a distinction, right? Because I want to draw out what you just said. The fact that the things that you were listening to, that are reading, the things that you were consuming ended up being quote unquote like mentors onto you. And so that to me is crazy, right? Because I think it's important to see the other side. So a lot of people can get into crazy things. Like a lot of people consume nothing but porn or just trash, right? Like I remember at work, I was sitting there literally with my colleagues, and this kid just shows up and starts listening to this crazy nonsense interview, and I'm just like, bro, like, how do you not understand? How do you not know how to read a room, first of all, right? And so how do you talk to men that don't find the importance in the things that they consume, like,
For sure.
as far as media goes?
I'm so glad you brought this question up because I've been thinking about it all day. And I've only told this to two people. But so I was at work and they were talking about watching porn and stuff like that. And one of my buddies was asking me about it, and I was like, "Oh, actually, I don't watch porn." And he's like, "What? Why?" And because that's to a lot of people, that's a foreign concept.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have people in their lives like, "Hey, that's not a good thing to consume."
Right.
And the things that you consume really affect the way your mind works. From porn to social media, to really retarded podcast host.
Not this one.
Not this one, but
that's right.
There's a lot of trash in the world, and that really affect the way that you think. And so I'm not gonna say her name, but he ended up taking that serious because he wanted to ask. He's like, why don't you watch it? And I was like, well, it affects your brain in the first place. Why would you want to watch other people doing their thing? You know what I mean? You don't like have some pride as a man and
go out there and make it happen.
for sure. And stop, with the wife for sure, and stop being that way. And it's funny because so that was months ago. He came up to me last week and he's like, "Hey bro, it's been 63 days." And I was like, 63 days for what?
Stop.
And he's like, 63 days since I watched porn. And I couldn't, man, that was such a feeling. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
The conversations between people can have that kind of an impact. Because
that's what we were just talking about.
100%,
oh my gosh,
100%. And I was delighted. You know, I was really happy to hear that. And I was like, good job, bro. And he's married. So like, not only good for him, but good for his wife. Because what wife wants to be with a husband that watches porn? But this is so normalized in society today that people don't even see it as a wrong thing. And I think it's because people are consumed by social media, by what people say, and
the
worst of the word.
Yeah.
Facts. That's a good word. We're definitely desensitized. And so that was really a highlight of my week. Him coming up and telling me that. So, yeah, I would say even at work, it's really good to talk about your values. I know people work in places where it's kind of taboo to talk about God, for example, but that doesn't stop you from talking about the values that God gives you and the values that God instills in you. And so this reminds me of another story at work, and this just happened. And this I haven't told anybody yet. It still blows my mind. So there was a guy that started my job a few months ago, and he's a really cool guy, but he doesn't really believe in God. And anytime I was around him, I was always talking about like, what God is doing, like the attributes that God can give a man. And he was always kind of like giving us a smirk. So he just came up to me yesterday. It was yesterday. He's like, "Hey bro, I went to church for the first time last Sunday." And the way that he was speaking, because he would speak crazy, just like everybody else at work, speaking crazy. We started talking about life, and he's like, "I mean, what I want to do most is like give glory to God." And I just couldn't believe what he was saying. I was like, "What are you talking about?"
That's crazy.
And it's funny because even in my mind, I doubted like me talking about God. I thought I almost wanted to quiet down just because I knew like he wasn't having it at all. But it just shows what kind of an impact, if you step out and you really be the light, you really let your character shine through, how much of an impact it can have to people that don't even believe in God.
Right.
Because he was not only was he an atheist, but he believed in like stoicism and stuff like that.
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
A stoic, I can't give you the precise definition, but it's more like the attitude that he gives is just like whatever happens. You know what I mean? So he was just like really mellow. Okay.
Well, I learned the word. I just learned the definition of stoic today. So that means it's somebody that's really like, pretty much. They don't wear their expressions on their face.
That's it. Yeah, they're like what they go through. They kind of let it come and and they kind of let it pass. But he didn't believe in God. I think he even had like a bitterness towards God.
Makes sense.
And so hearing him say that was crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so then I think even as men have like this ability to be able to obviously, women influence, right? We have influence, and we are able to nurture. We are able to do these things as women, much more so as godly women, right? And so men have this ability to be able to take authority over a situation, over a atmosphere. And so I think it's amazing to know that, it's not something, especially when you're growing in God, it's not something that you need to necessarily be so like, I'm gonna walk in here and I'm gonna be this man, like it just becomes a part of you, right? The more that you walk with the Lord.
100%.
And so, man, like there's so many ways that I can take this interview, but I'm gonna stick to this script. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to ask you before I forget is you were talking about the mentorship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the girls and I were always pushing mentorship. Of course, that doesn't mean that, you know, mentors are not supposed to be like this magic, what is it? Magic conch shell?
The magic conch shell.
Like, that's not the purpose of a mentor. A mentor is supposed to help guide in all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you take responsibility for your own life.
Absolutely.
So how would you not so much as convince, but motivate somebody to find mentors? And I know that you have different books and stuff, or that you used to use that, but now do you go to people? Like, do you have mentors in your life?
Sure. I mean, I would say try to understand your value system and where you want to progress your values, and find somebody that already embodies that. That could be your perfect mentor, because there's people out there that embody the values that you want.
Right.
And if you're looking for godly values, which everybody should be, as long as you believe in God, and look for somebody that really embodies it, not just a title, but that really embodies these values, and speak to them, because their influence will rub off on you. And you can ask them questions. You can really dig into what they're thinking, and they can impart that into you. Because you know that old saying, like, you are who you hang out with?
Yeah, for sure.
I completely take the same with mentors. I'm even reluctant to say the word mentors, because I hate to, like, religiosity everything.
Yeah.
But it's just somebody that you're able to look up to, that can impart wisdom and knowledge into you. And even that you can see an example of somebody that emulates the values that you want, which I think is really important. I think it's important to be able to live in your values and build up your character. And so if you see somebody that already has that, I would say reach out.
That's good. And I remembered a follow-up question. So you said that you dealt with the pain that you went through as a child, right? And now you know, you developed thick skin and all that. And so what motivated you and what helped you get through that hurt and through that pain? And how do you keep yourself from going back there?
It's a very interesting question. I think, okay, so it was just that bad. So I pray. I pray daily. But the most effective prayer that I've ever prayed in my life is, help me. Help me, God. And I've been in moments in my life where it was that, like, help me. I need to be freed from this situation. And so going through, like, that torment really put a fire under me to overcome that. And not only to overcome it, but because it's different to repress what you feel and sidestep it and pretend like you don't feel anything, but it's different to overcome it so you don't go through it again. In case those experiences arise again, you have overcome it before in the past, and you can overcome it again, or else you're just going to be constantly falling in this cycle anytime, like, the world collapses, because the world is filled with calamity. But what you learn in those moments is what stays. And so I would say just learn from your experiences and
don't try to sidestep it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really good. And it's funny that you say that, because earlier today I don't know if it was today or yesterday, I don't know, one of these days I was with the Lord, and you know, because there are those cycles, right, where it's just like, man, like, how am I back here? Right, how am I back here again? Like, obviously, like, it's not to the same degree, but, and so then finally I realized, you know, it's so easy to forget that at the end of the day, like, you are a son or a daughter of God, right?
Sure.
And so then that he is our helper. There's a scripture in Psalms that says he's the lifter of our head. And so I think, it's like, you know, you do have to walk out your salvation, and you do, as I mentioned, take responsibility for your walk and all those things. But there's also that time in your life where you can come to the Lord and you're like, bro, like, I don't have this together.
For sure.
And I think those are just as important as those where you become like a warrior for Christ, 100%. Right?
100%.
Because God is not going to, you know, a lot of us want to do warfare for the Lord, and we want to do all those things, but God's not going to put a wounded soldier out in battle, especially when you're going to cost the war for everybody else,
For
right?
sure.
And so the most loving thing I think that you can, one of the most loving things is, as the word says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So you wouldn't put your neighbor out on the battlefield when they're hurt. So why would you put yourself through that? You know?
Sure.
So I love that you said that. I think it's so simple. It's so, like, it's humble, honestly, to be able to come to the Lord and be like, I need help.
Absolutely. It's funny because I think it's just a sense of pride.
Yeah.
If you think that you can just get over anything, like you've learned it all, you have nothing else to gain, or you can't fall into a situation that you can't get out of. That, I mean, God is our protector, our provider, and that's the benefit of having this relationship, is that He can save us from these situations. If you're not in situations that are crazy, like, you're not living life, because the calamity strikes on everybody, on every household. And so being able to lean on God and humbling yourself to say, God, like, I need you, because I'm not doing this by myself. That still happens to me.
Yeah.
I haven't figured it all out, and I'm not planning on being able to figure it all out. I need to be able to lean on God, because when we're weak, He's strong. You know, and God is really faithful for that, faithful in that. Because if we can humble ourselves, that's when God can really change our situation, you know what I mean? Or even be that comfort when calamity strikes, which I think is extremely important, because no matter how bad your external situations are, if you can feel right within yourself, if you can feel the peace of God, it's bad outside, but it's not that detrimental. And I've been through some stuff, but in all of those moments, I was able to feel a peace within, and I was always able to when I felt it, I always knew, like, I'm gonna be okay, and I'm gonna get out of this, and this is gonna pass. That all comes from God. I'm not that cool, you know what I mean? Because some of that stuff sucked, you know. And so God has been able to speak that into me by me being reliant on Him.
That's really good, Steven. Real
quick, like, because without having the father figure, I was really able to dive into the God is my father, and that identity is everything to me, because I can see in any situation in my life, I look up to God as my father, and I ask, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to conduct myself? How do I get out of this? God is my, like, legitimate, not like on some some weird spiritual, no, I mean, like, He's my father, and I come to Him in that way. And God is really faithful to help me if I can humble myself in those situations and do that. That's
really good. I've said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. Where I think when you have the right idea of who God is, like, surrendering, it becomes easy, right? Because you understand that you're not surrendering to somebody that's going to hurt you. You're surrendering to somebody that's going to help you. And so a lot of people, I don't know why people romanticize surrendering as a way of, like, oh my gosh, like, I really am wrestling with God and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but, like, do you know God's character?
Right.
You know?
It's funny because I think that's what an atheist is somebody that's wrestling with God, because the idea haunts them, and they can't put together, like, how the world was made and how God can even exist. I think those are the people that wrestle. You know what I mean? That's good. I know, I think Israel means those who wrestle with God.
I think you're right, yeah.
And so
I think.
I'm pretty sure.
I hope so. You better not make me look down, bro.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there you go. Always finish it with them. Okay, so did I ask this question? Have we gotten to this yet? What were some things you felt God was having you change in your life once you came to Him?
When I was a teenager, I didn't really, that was a different time. I just wanted to be able to, so since my social circle was so bad, once I started reaching out and trying to find new people, I found myself so uncomfortable talking to anybody. I couldn't engage in dialogue with anybody that wasn't, like, a bad guy.
What?
And so God started helping me with that, and obviously reading and writing helped me to articulate myself better. But I didn't start going to church until I was 21. And that's when I really started fixing, I would say, the more sinful ways that I had, because there were so many things that I was not aware of. I was not aware that you were supposed to be abstinent. I was that you're not supposed to drink and do this and that. I had no.
What did you know?
I had no idea. I didn't know. Okay. And so I was doing worse as a teenager. So that's like on the lighter side.
Yeah.
And so once I started finding out about that stuff, I just started to discipline myself and veer away from those things. So, like, obviously, becoming abstinent, remaining that way, stop drinking. I used to smoke a lot. Stop smoking. I just started shedding those bad habits off of me.
Okay, so tell me about the resistance that you felt, because I'm sure you're the streets were calling. I'm sure the streets were calling. How was that, letting go of that?
It wasn't. I remember one time I was playing beer pong in a garage, and I was drunk, and I remember like the room stopped for a second, and I started looking around, and I was like, because I've had different phases of my life. Like, just because I was a teenager and God came to me didn't mean like my whole life was great, because I was still quote unquote bad in like social norms that just was better than I was. And I remember looking around the room and looking at everybody. I was like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing any of this? And so I really realized that I just did not want to live that life. I didn't want to be a loser. And that's when I started seeing it as, like, dudes that are out here just being drunk, doing nothing and having a good time. Like, this is not the life that I want. I want to be able to progress. And so, like, dropping those things, I did it overnight. I stopped smoking cigarettes, stopped smoking weed, and I stopped drinking overnight. It was one day I stopped it all at the same time. So it wasn't a lot of pushback. Yes, people were trying to get me to do it again, but I was really hard-headed in wanting to become better, and God showed me that that was the way to become better, and so I stopped.
Really good. That's really good. Okay, next question is,
did you have a hard time stopping all that stuff?
So with me, I think the Lord, it was progressive. I think after I got my DUI, I also started because I kept hanging around with my friends, and so then finally I had a moment like that too, and I was like, bro, like, why am I here? Why am I putting myself in this situation where like, these people, you know, they're not doing anything for me.
Absolutely.
But as far as like letting go of the substance, like I think there was only one of those things that was hard for me, but everything else was easy peasy.
That's interesting. And that's also not to say like that I haven't dibbled in, because I've done bad things even as a Christian. Like, I've been to the club and I've drank. I'm just being honest.
I mean, that's how we started the podcast, from loungers to mixers.
Right. I have, you know, I'm just being honest about it. I've definitely messed up, and God definitely had to shake me and remind me why I started this journey in the first place, and the man that I want to be in the first place, because that's the man that I want to be and that I'm going for doesn't do those things. Yeah. And so those are the character developments that I'm working on now.
That's really good. You're dropping heat, Steven. All right. Let's see. So now we're going to talk about your servanthood. How have you always been like that? Like, quick to help?
I was thinking about this question earlier. I don't think I've always been that way. Thank you for noticing. I didn't start developing that until I went to church, and when I really got saved is when things started ticking off in my mind to do this and to do that, and I really found a joy in serving, and I never looked at it as like being below, you know, like, I'm just the guy that catches things, or I'm the guy that takes it. I never looked at it that way. And I really enjoyed serving. And then, like, I remember somebody in church, like, did you know the greatest in the kingdom was serving them all? And I was like, oh, you don't say. And so
I'm sure they said it that way too, huh?
They definitely said it that way, yeah. Always trying to mock me.
Okay.
And so no, I wouldn't say I was like that. Definitely just when I became saved, it was an attribute that was kind of instilled in me right away. And now my mind just kind of works that way.
That's really good. Okay, so I did ask that question, dang. Okay, so have you seen servanthood or open up doors for you? Like, talk to me about that. Like, have you seen a benefit? And I don't mean it in a benefit where your motive was to get a benefit, right? But where you were able to get perspective from that. Kind
of. I've been able to, obviously it's humbling, you know what I mean? I'm not the coolest, I'm not the too good to go do this or go do that. And so it's always good to have a humbling experience. I think it's helped me be helped me develop to be more of a gentleman, even to women that have been in my life, because I'm able to have those little mannerisms that I picked up from serving. Yeah. And so, like, to be I mean, people say to marriage all the time that they serve each other. And so developing that servanthood has benefited me in that way, and then instilled in my mind how to move forward into future relationships.
That's good. That's really good. Okay. What advice do you have for someone who can't seem to get past the negative circumstances in their life?
Well, first I would stop all the bad stuff you're doing. I feel like a lot of people are doing bad things that mess up their mind. Like if you're watching porn, stop. If you're consuming bad media, stop. If you can get your character down and you can really establish a relationship with God, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. Like I said earlier, I've been through some really bad times. I remember I was just talking to my brother, because we're talking about perspective, and he's like sad about like some of the things that happened to us. And I was like, bro, there's people that have watched their parents get raped in front of them and murdered. There's people that have had very rough lives and they still persevere. That's what I want to embody, to still be able to persevere, to remember my values and my character and still push forward even in like the worst of moments. There's stories of people in the gulags during World War II that did heroic acts knowing that they were gonna die anyways. That's what I want. That's what I want to be able, where my character shines forward regardless of what's going all around me, because that'll sustain you. You know what I mean? Who you are, your value system, your character that comes from God will sustain you, even in bad situations. So if you see yourself doing bad things for your body and for your health, cut it out. Go to the gym.
Simple enough. It really is that simple. No, honestly, it starts like in one of the episodes, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 episodes back, we started talking about the Proverbs. And the Proverbs is so simple, right? It develops your character. It teaches you how to be a successful human. And to me, it's just, we're the ones that overly complicate it. When God himself has made it really simple in order for us to be able to follow him and to be able to be successful human beings.
For sure. I mean, you'll know. It's not hard to figure out the bad things in your life for you to cut out. We'll know. God gives us that. I feel like even if you're not saved, these things that you're doing are wrong. Cut it out and you'll see your life begin to change just with small changes. Did you know that I was reading a study that like if you practice a skill for 20 minutes a day for a year, you're better than like 90% of the population at that skill. It doesn't take a lot to become better. It just takes a little bit of discipline and consistency, and you can get yourself out of anything.
Dang, that's really good. Steven, who the heck are you?
Stop.
All right. What would you say to single Christian men out there who are not rising up to the occasion of being a man in the kingdom? What would you say to them?
Stop being a loser. Okay. No, for sure. I think guys like to look at the end goal and think, oh, if I was married already, none of these problems would be here. I'd be okay. And it's not necessarily the case. The thing that you're going to find out is you're going to get married and all the problems that you neglected while you were single are going to pop up amplified. And now you have your problems, your wife's problems, all coming at you at the same time. What I would say is establish yourself now, find a work ethic, and cut off the bad habits that you have and start working on your character, because like we're built to lead. So how about you be that leader today? Don't wait till you find your wife. Be that leader today. Establish yourself now. Work on your character now. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Like I may not be married today, but I will be. So what am I? I'm just gonna wake up and I'm gonna be different. That's not gonna happen. Right. So I'm starting to try to work in that character and those values of being a leader. What a husband does look like today, because I mean it's not gonna happen overnight when we say I do.
Right.
You know?
Although that would be great. But yeah, no, it does not pop off like that.
As far as like single Christian guys, and if like they have problems talking to women or anything like that, I would say really just start to embrace rejection. Life as a man is filled with rejection. You should get okay with it, because men pursue and women put themselves in the position to be pursued. So in the pursuit, you're gonna be rejected. Right. So get okay with that. And it's almost like a superpower if you can be okay with that and persevere through. Keep on trucking. Don't be a loser.
Don't be so sensitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what's going on in your life now? What are you doing?
Let's see. I'm working. When I got saved, I had something instilled in me where I've wanted to save kids from sex trafficking. And the more I started researching that, I realized that it's like federal law enforcement agencies that deal with that. The only problem I had is that I was a really, really bad kid, and I had no road to become anything of that sort. So God started opening up doors for me to the point where I found myself in federal law enforcement and then in the position to get into these other agencies. So I'm in the process right now with 2 agencies, the U.S. Marshals and HSI. If you watch Operation, or what was that movie? A Sound of Freedom.
Oh, yeah,
That was the HSI agents.
Oh, okay. Oh, dang.
And I'm working on that now, attempting to get into those agencies where I want to really put my footprint in and really bring God as putting the super on my natural and really make a change. You know, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can stop everything, because none of us by ourselves can, but I do feel like I can make an imprint and I can make some sort of a change. And so I want to be able to do that. And so that's what I'm working on right now. That's also why I started school. And so I'm about to graduate. What else is going on with my life right now?
Did anybody ever sit you down and was like, Steven, you need to do XYZ? Or is this something that the Lord just planted in your heart?
No. No one has. I remember there was a man named Corey Nichols that came to my old church, and he showed us a video of what sex trafficking was, and I've never even heard of the concept. I was really neglected as a kid, so there's a lot of things I didn't know. And I remember there was a video of this American man flying to a third world country, it might have been Cambodia, and the next scene, it shows him on a bed unbuttoning his shirt, and there was like a 7-year-old girl crying in the bed, and I lost it. I started crying, and it drove me so much I knew I had to make a change in it. And then I would start praying about it, like, is this what I'm supposed to do? And then God started slowly but surely opening doors in my life. And I mean, there's so many of my friends that I still know that are still mind blown, like, yeah, you actually started making it happen. Because there was no way from where I was that without God that I thought it was possible to at least even get this far. And I'm nothing yet, but in comparison to what I came from, I've been able to make a lot of weight thanks to God.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the reason why a lot of us respect you, right? It's, I mean, one of the reasons why we have you here on the podcast, because if anybody that we know could have given themselves over to their circumstances, is obviously, like, it's you, you know. And I know that you were not vague in a negative connotation, but I know that you were vague in explaining, like, the kind of stuff that you experienced growing up. But I think that's what draws our attention, right? The fact that you, obviously, God gets the glory first. And one, you're not shy about saying that. And two, you understand, you have a full understanding that your life circumstances sucked, but you also have a fuller understanding that you don't have the ability to dwell on that. For
sure.
And so I think that's what's amazing. And I think that's the reason, that's one of the reasons, again, that we wanted to have you on the podcast, because people need to hear that, you know, not to beat themselves up where it's just like, you know, well, I could have done that, I should have done that, whatever. Like, it's to understand that it really can start today. Like, there's so many people in the Bible, there's so many examples in the Bible of people that just repented, and people are probably like, repenting, like, what is that? No, but repenting is a change of heart.
Absolutely.
And it is crying out to God, and it is asking him for help, and you know, and it really is like opening yourself up. You know, one of the things that the Lord taught me, which was so mind-blowing, because there's a lot of self-help books out there, right? There's so many, we're so inundated with information that, at least for me, it's overwhelming. It's like, dude, like, where do I start? One day you think you found an answer for something, and then all of a sudden somebody else comes out with like a different answer for that same problem, and it's like, bro, like, where do I go? And so what I love about the Word of God is that it applies to everything, right? Like, if the best way that the Lord showed me this imagery is like this little old shriveled up lady, like 90 years old in the deepest ends of the world. If she gets the Bible, and if she has her hands on her Bible, she has the exact resource that I myself have here in America. And we both have like this, of course, different playing field, but at the end of the day, we both have this amazing reward where we can push through and persevere. And so it's like, I know that it can get very overwhelming, especially with so many different voices, but at the end of the day, the one voice that matters is obviously God's.
Absolutely.
Right? And so men derive their wisdom from the Lord. And so, it's like, do you have Bible studies with your friends? Like, do you do that? Is that a thing that you do?
I have Bible study. I mean, one of my buddies was doing a Bible study for a little bit that I was engaging with. I do read the Bible on and off work. And so obviously we can do a little bit better about coming together to read the Bible.
Yeah, for men, for sure.
For men, for sure. I think that would be really important.
Yeah.
Like iron sharpens iron. I think it's really...
I was about to say that, yeah.
I think it's really important for men to build each other up.
Do you think that's hard to do that?
No, honestly, I don't. I think all it takes is obviously getting out there, but no. Because a lot of us deal with similar things. So it's not embarrassing to tell your friend, hey, I'm going through this. Like, let's pray. Let's get... Okay, so... Bible studies, no, but I have friends that we talk to each other and pray for each other constantly, daily. And I don't think it's necessarily hard. I just think it takes a level of vulnerability for a guy to reach out and say, hey, I'm going through this. But if you can establish a relationship and they feel comfortable enough to come out with it, I think it's better for them to one, let somebody in, like have some accountability, but have somebody fight the battle with you. You know what I mean? Because that's what we can do. We can fight this battle together.
Right.
I think that's a beautiful thing about like having other men around is being able to pray for each other and war on each other's behalf, because sometimes we're not all there and sometimes we need some help, and so it's cool to have somebody be able to uplift you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's really good. What would you like to leave our listeners with? Any last words of wisdom?
I would just say that no matter what you're going through, try to hold on to the fact that God is watching at all times. And if you should be able to find comfort in that, because no matter what you're going through, God can intervene into any situation. I've seen God come radically and flip my world upside down in a good way, and from terrible situations. So never let yourself like get in a cycle of a bad mindset, because you're just affecting yourself. Think about how much better your life could be if you really took like God gave us a gift of, is it a gift how it happened? We have free will. So you have free will. You can really open up your Bible. You can start praying and really develop a character and a life that's great. Or you can sit and complain and think, woe is me, the world sucks. And I see that all the time at work, where people have a really negative mindset and their entire life sucks. Like, do you want to live like that, or do you want to have a better life? And if you do, you can reach out to God and you can start developing all these good habits that really build you up and have a great life.
That's good.
And stop being a loser.
Simple as that. All right. So thank you, Steven, for popping in.
Of course.
For saying yes. And thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your support. As we always say, pray for your single friends, because it is hard out here. See you next week.